about the holes in the data for weekends and bank holidays. Well, the BBC apparently this morning during their on their website for the coronavirus briefing put the same graph up showing that the downward trend, or they're claiming that the downward trend of daily deaths has stalled. And of course, the reason I was asking the question on Friday was just to get people thinking about why this might be the case. Obviously, weekends are a part of it, and lots of people got in touch saying that there's not so much reporting going on at weekends, and so for the weekend deaths appear on the Monday generally, and certainly that seems to be the case on this graph. But in which case, why is the claim that the downward trend of daily deaths has stalled? Because it's too early to say whether that's the case or not. If you've been paying attention to the Daily Mail over the last number of weeks, what this form of reporting has allowed them to do is that over the weekends we saw headlines saying only 400 people died in the last 24 hours, only 250 people died in the last 24 hours, and then on the Monday morning the headline was 650 people died in the last 24 hours, and the implication was that things were getting immediately worse, or you know, it was designed to, in my opinion, cause stress in people that the numbers had jumped back up again, when in fact it was merely a reporting issue. But of course, BBC here saying downward trend has stalled. Well, the question is, has it? Because if we look at the trend of weekend deaths, it's certainly fairly heading southwards. Same with during the week. That doesn't look like it's stalled. It looks like a slight adjustment in the 7-day rolling average has made them describe this as a stall, again designed to mess with people's minds and not a reflection of reality, Brian.
Yeah, the fear factor, the constant pushing of the fear factor is what we see all the time with the mainstream reporting of coronavirus. Well, let's just jump over to Dominic Cummings, who of course is still sat in the background. He's escaped the small embarrassment of travelling when he shouldn't have been, and now he's deep at work in the heart of government. And some very, very interesting research has now started around Dominic Cummings, and this was a particular article sent through to us this morning. We've got quite a lot of information here. We've done our best to package it for the news today. Let's have a look at True Publica. And their headlines is a cover story obscuring something far darker. So this is from the 28th of May, and we'll put in a bit of text. It's an excellent article, encourage people to read it. If the Tories had reacted to the COVID-19 crisis and thrown their protective ring around the vulnerable and those in care homes, as they did with Cummings, we would have seen a different outcome to the sheer scale of death that this virus has brought to Britain. But this government wants chaos. This is the modus operandi of Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson, as they both believe no real change can come without it. Now, I really paid attention to this, Mike, because this brings us back to reports that people like Danny Kruger came out with several years ago, where they said it was the intention of the Tory party to introduce chaos, because out of chaos they were going to transform the civil service and public services.
It's really interesting, because I'm reading a book on Mao Zedong at the moment, and that was, in the really early days, that was absolutely his position, that China had to be completely destroyed and rebuilt. Yeah. And this seems to be exactly the policy that we're seeing at the moment.
Exactly the policy, and encourage people to go to this article because it's referenced, it's so clear, it's so punchy, and of course the headline there says it all, that while we're watching all of this pantomime around COVID-19, something very dark is happening at the heart of government. Now, True Publica references back to the work by Carol Cadwalladr, and this article is back to 2019, where she is commenting on what was happening around Brexit and the role of Dominic Cummings. She's bringing in Cambridge Analytica. But we are now able to go back into this work, and we're starting to look at Dominic Cummings in a different way. So again, another article that I'm going to encourage people to go and read for yourself and see what she has to say. But we've taken a little bit of an excerpt here. So she says, for Dominic Cummings, it's an opportunity to drive an axe through everything he hates most about British state, starting with Parliament. That's quite a statement itself. Starting with Parliament and ending, I suspect, with the civil service. That's the deal I believe he will have done with Johnson. He'll help Johnson get Brexit through, and in exchange, Cummings will blow up his hated civil service. Now, this wasn't a throwaway comment that this lady had made on Dominic Cummings, because he'd attacked her when she started to point out what he was up to, but her own work around Cambridge Analytica in particular, and what it was doing around the time of the Brexit debacle was really astonishing. She went on to say this: it seems absurd now our electoral laws rest on a gentleman's agreement, an agreement that Cummings threw a stick of dynamite at. His decision to do the same to our famously unwritten constitution should have surprised no one. The noise, the anecdotes, and the tall Westminster tales are flares he sends up before he drops his bombs somewhere else entirely. It's not his genius that we should be debating, it's our own stupidity. There is a smash and grab of our democracy going on in real time, and this silence is complicity. So I think it's remarkable that she is another person who's looking at Cummings and saying this man is out to destroy serious elements of the country, our constitution, how government works, how civil society works. And this, of course, is the repurposing of government that our Westminster insider warned us about, Cummings in the lead. So let's move on just to this one, the canary.